Hey, Jeff LeBard here, winemaker at the Vineyard. Here today to pour 3 wines that are coming to you in the November red shipment. The first of those 3 wines is the 2018 Estate Pinot Noir. So the Estate Pinot Noir smells delicious first and foremost. Comes from predominantly from our Evans Ranch property, but there's a little bit of Rancho Esperanza fruit in there as well. And I think that is kind of what makes this wine, if you will. I'm a big fan of the estate style. So those of you that have followed this style for a long time probably know. Those of you that don't, I'll explain. We don't go very heavy-handed at all with the amount of new oak or spice in the wine. It's only sits around 22% new French. The rest of it's all neutral oak. So you have a wine that starts off as something that is very fruity and just kind of essence of Pinot, if you will. So just the beautiful fruit that exists is really shining through in the glass. What I think is particularly fascinating about this wine, and specifically this vintage, is this really nice medley you get of both red fruit and darker kind of blue fruit spectrum in the same bottle of wine. Big fan of that, especially for the Estate Pinot Noir. So you have kind of those really pretty strawberry, even some like rhubarby tones in the nose and in the palate, but then you also do get some little bit of blueberry, blackberry. As well, this wine is actually bottled before the following vintage starts, so it only ages for about 10 months. And again, that's another kind of technique that we use here to provide a wine that has a lot of freshness about it. So we want this wine to be everything that it is in the glass. It's youthful, it's expressive, it's got nice amounts of red fruit, a little bit of blue fruit in it, and just enough spice to kind of keep the wine, just to kind of elevate the wine. That's the 2018 Estate Pinot Noir. Cheers. You know, that would pair really well with like a pork dish, I have to say. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a center cut pork roast with that this weekend. On to the next wine. We have our 2018 limited selection Cabernet Franc. For those, oh, that was almost disastrous. For those of you that follow our Cabernet Franc, you know already. This wine is always a wine that everybody that loves Cab Franc loves. And so let's just kind of smell and taste it real quick. So the first kind of thing that jumps out at me that is always the goal with making our Cabernet Franc, I think what you all probably have come to enjoy and love, is the kind of leatheriness that jumps out of the nose, and also kind of a tobacco spice. And I think where this Cabernet Franc may go a little different from others is that I think a lot of people that perhaps Cabernet Franc isn't their favorite wine kind of knock it for it being a little bit lean and drying on the palate. And so I think that's kind of where our style stands out a little bit more, is that when you smell the wine, it's very Cab Franc, but when you taste the wine, it's very expansive and rich on the palate. It's very long and very wide on the palate, which makes it a really nice, smooth wine from start to finish. This wine ages for about 13 months. And again, not a whole lot of oak here. We're looking at maybe kind of mid 20% range. So again, have enough kind of spice and brown spice to help elevate those tobacco and leather tones, but not to overpower the wine. That's always the message. If there's a thread that runs through the Gainey and Evans Ranch lineup, is that we do make our wines with a certain level of restraint, and we don't over decorate them. And it's really a simple explanation, because we don't need to. We have phenomenal grapes that we get to work with here. We're spoiled with the caliber of fruit we're capable of growing in the San Ynez Valley and the Santa Rita Hills appellation. So there's really just not a need for much manipulation, or I guess cover up, if you will. Anyways, that's the 2018 limited selection Cabernet Franc. Cheers. That's really good. And last but not least, certainly not least, is the 2017 Patrick's Vineyard Cuvée. Those of you that are big Patrick's Cuvée fans already know, but for those of you that might be new to the family of wines, the Patrick's Vineyard Cuvée is named after Dan Gainey's oldest son, Patrick Gainey. This is a project that was started, back in 2009, I believe, was our first vintage. So it was kind of like right after I had started here as the winemaker. And it's been a wine that we've grown with, and we have kind of fine-tuned and honed our sword, so to speak, over the years. And I can tell you that this wine's exceptional from start to finish, and it's from years of hard work. And again, it always goes back to dedication in the vineyard. So the Gainey's planted this vineyard on a southern-facing slope that's much warmer. It's got a much warmer microclimate than the rest of the vineyard. Very rocky soils with a very low fruit zone, so that actually gives us more reflective heat. So when you smell and taste this wine, which we should probably do, you just smell and taste this physiologically perfectly ripe Cabernet Sauvignon is what jumps out at me. So you get that cassis fruit, but then what we kind of layer into that, if you will, is some Petit Verdot and some Merlot. The Petit Verdot in most Bordeaux blends adds a lot of size, but through the way we ferment ours, it actually adds a little bit of texture. So Petit Verdot can tend to be a little bit drying on the palate, and we saw that early on in this project, so we kind of changed course and changed the way we fermented that wine so that it was a much more harmonious blending component for this wine. And I think that that's a major success, because when you taste this wine, you're going to see, again, like all of the others, a very harmonious, long, broad impact on the palate. This wine ages for about 14 months. This guy has a bit more oak in it. This is upwards, I think, of about 42% this vintage, if I'm not mistaken. And the reason for that, when you have so much jam-packed fruit in there, it really can handle the excess oak without feeling like there's oak in the wine. And I think you'll agree after you taste the wine. It's just got a really pleasant amount of spice in it. Again, rich, wide, and long on the palate. 2018, 2017 Patrick's Vineyard Cuvée. Cheers.